Welcome to Whisper of the Night, a quiet space for the stories we don't say out loud, the kind we carry in silence. Tonight's tale is not about monsters with teeth, but about promises that cut deeper than any blade. It's the story of a bride, not cursed by a spell, but by her own devotion. She loved too much, forgot herself too long, and when the silence finally broke, it didn't sound like freedom, it sounded like thorns. If you've ever lost yourself for someone who couldn't see you, this story is for you. Close your eyes now. Let the thorns speak. They used to say that the forest behind the village was cursed, that the further you walked in, the quieter the world became, until even your thoughts started to whisper instead of speak. Most people, after hearing that, stayed far away. She didn't. She walked in willingly, wrapped in a faded red shawl and carrying nothing but a letter that no longer smelled like the one who wrote it. His name was never said out loud now. Not in town, not even in her breath. It was as if speaking it would remind her that he was gone. Not gone like the dead, but gone like the kind of silence that never gives you closure. They told her he vanished into that forest months ago. No trail, no body. Only a song the wind sometimes carried back, as though the trees were humming his favourite tune. She remembered the tune. It was the one he used to play when he said, "I love you even if you don't believe you deserve it." But now, she wasn't sure if she ever deserved it, or if he ever meant it. The forest welcomed her with a chill that didn't touch her skin, only her bones. The trees weren't dead, but they didn't breathe either. Their leaves hung like drapes in an abandoned ballroom, frozen in a dance that had long since ended. And then she saw it. A gate, not made of iron, not even wood. It was formed by arching rose vines, blood red, coiled like serpents, pulsing faintly like veins beneath skin. At their centre, a path paved in black glass led into a mist-drenched garden, the Garden of Red Veils. She stepped through, and the air changed. The sky above this place was neither day nor night. Just dim, just forever, a muted twilight that made time fold in on itself. She didn't feel the wind anymore, or her feet, but she felt watched, not by creatures, but by the petals themselves. Each flower in the garden was stunning. Every bloom bigger than her head, the colour of bruises, longing, or blood, but they weren't just flowers, they had names. Tiny plaques beneath each stem written in curling blackened script. Amara, she waited too long to be loved. Nell, he said forever then forgot. Elise, she gave everything, even herself. She ran her fingers over a petal. It felt warm, breathing. And for a second, just a flicker, she saw a face in the centre of the bloom. A girl's face, eyes closed, serene. As if asleep, as if dreaming still, her chest tightened. She hadn't come for flowers. She came to find him. But she didn't know where the garden ended. Every path curved into another, every corner mirrored the last. Soon she began to forget how long she'd been walking, and with each step the fog whispered more sweet nothings, phrases he used to say to her. "You're my only. No one will love you like I do. Don't ever leave me." And at first she smiled, but then she began to realise those weren't memories, they were warnings. The garden was not growing, it was feeding. She saw it clearly now, new flowers blooming behind her, small at first, red as raw sorrow. And though she hadn't shed a single tear, she felt lighter, like she had left a piece of herself behind with every turn, a memory, a regret, a promise. Was this why no one returned? Was this what happened to him? Had he not left her, become part of the garden? She paused at a clearing. There, at its centre, stood a single stone bench. Upon it lay a red ribbon, familiar, frayed, tied in the knot he always used, and beside it, written not on a plaque, carved into the bench itself. He loved her too much, so he stayed where love would never fade. But she must choose, love leave before she becomes the next bloom. Her hands trembled. The garden offered no doors, only choices, and behind her the first thorn grew from her shadow. The house that whispers his name. She didn't know how long she wandered after the ribbon. Time no longer dripped or flowed in this place. It bled, slowly, without healing. The paths twisted like memories you couldn't quite trust. Each flower she passed murmured softer now, as if disappointed she hadn't stopped to listen longer. But she had heard enough. She had read enough names, too many broken hearts, too many girls who didn't leave. And now something new appeared ahead. Not a flower, not a clearing, but a house, small, crooked, as if built out of the wood of forgotten lullabies and winds that had wept too long. Its door stood slightly ajar, inviting or warning. She should have turned back, but she remembered his voice. "If you're lost, find the place that remembers me." She stepped inside. The air was warm in a way that was wrong, not cozy, but intimate, as if the walls were watching, as if the house had lungs. There was dust, but only where the light didn't touch. The corners were alive with the scent of old paper, lilac perfume, and something faintly metallic, like dried blood behind a picture frame. On a desk by the window, she found a stack of letters, written in his hand, or close enough. "My love, I miss you even when you are near. I ache even when you smile. Yet I've buried pieces of myself just to keep holding your hand." She dropped the letter. Her heart slammed against her ribs, because she remembered that one, word for word. He wrote it on their second autumn, but he'd never sent it. So how was it here? She moved through the house. In every room there were relics of their love. A mug chipped at the rim, the one he always stole from her. A scarf she had lost the night of their first fight. A music box that only played when she cried. Each item hummed. Each item whispered. And in every mirror she saw not her reflection, but him. Not as he was, but as he might have become. Tired, with sunken eyes, smiling like someone who'd given up everything and called it love. The house wasn't a home, it was a shrine, built by the part of her that refused to grieve. Maintained by the part of her that still needed to believe he belonged to her. Night fell without warning. And then she heard it. A knock at the door. She froze. Another knock. Soft. Familiar. She walked slowly to the entrance and opened it. No one. Only a small bouquet lying at the threshold, made of wilted violets and bleeding hearts. A note attached in handwriting that was definitely his. "Did you forget me already?" She dropped the bouquet. Behind her, the house. And the walls began to pulse, faint like a heartbeat, like breath, like something waking up. From the mirror above the fireplace, his face appeared. But it wasn't glass. It was water, rippled. Murky. He smiled. "You found me." She reached out. Her hand touched only cold mist. His eyes softened. "I never left. You just stopped looking in the right places." The room dimmed. "You always said love should be soft. So I became a whisper. I became the house that waits." Tears ran down her cheek. But I'm so tired of waiting," he said, voice cracking. "Let me in." She should have run. But where would she go? The garden outside had gone still. Even the flowers seemed to hold their breath. Her hand moved toward the mirror, and as she touched the surface, a thorn pricked her fingertip. Only a drop, but the mirror drank it like wine, and his smile widened. "Now you'll always find me, no matter where you are." Behind her, the front door slammed shut. Locked, the key had turned itself. And a presence, the mask of devotion. She no longer knew how long she had been inside the house. Time had dissolved into feelings. Warmth that never changed. Whispers that never ceased. And a presence that grew stronger each time she thought of turning back. The mirror no longer needed blood to speak. It now answered her thoughts. She would sit before it and he would appear. Not as the man she lost, but as the man she wished he had been, tender, apologetic, worshipful. "I never wanted to leave you," he'd say. "You were always enough. It was me who broke, not you." His eyes shimmered with sadness. His voice carried the weight of dreams that never came true. And every night she would press her hand to the mirror, wishing it was skin. But deep inside, something throbbed, a bruise in the part of her that still remembered how he hurt her. He had lied. He had left. He had loved, conditionally. One night, the house offered her a gift, a silver mask, delicate, elegant. It shimmered like starlight drowned in tears. "Wear it," the voice in the walls murmured, "and he will never see your doubts again." She held the mask. It felt warm. "If you hide the questions," it whispered, "you'll only see the love." She put it on, and suddenly the world became beautiful again. The walls brightened. The mirrors became windows, showing her memories, but only the sweet ones. The picnic where he kissed her fingers, the rainy night he showed up drenched, just to say sorry, the way he used to brush her hair and hum lullabies into her skin. No more pain, no more betrayal, just love, endless, devoted, safe. And he appeared more often now. Not only in the mirror, but seated beside her. His touch as real as a ghost could be. "You've forgiven me," he whispered. "I can feel it." She nodded, even if she wasn't sure. But then the mask began to grow heavier. She could no longer remove it. Its silver began to fade, tarnished with fingerprints and tear stains, and her reflection began to blur. One morning, she looked into the glass and saw not herself, but a woman smiling too wide, eyes too hollow. Her hands trembled. "I just wanted to be loved." The voice behind her replied, "You still are, but only the parts you keep hidden." She turned, and the room was filled with faces, dozens, hundreds, all wearing silver masks. Some laughed, some wept. Most just stared, as if waiting for someone to give them permission to be real again. The house grew cold. The man, her man, no longer needed to whisper. Now he spoke in commands. "Don't take off the mask. Don't question this. Don't ruin what we have." She began to see the truth beneath the devotion. This wasn't love. It was a mirror built out of her denial, and he was only as real as the lies she chose to believe. In the corner of the room, a flower bloomed from the floorboards, not red, but black. Its petals glistened like sorrow clothed in velvet, and underneath a plaque. She chose comfort over clarity. Now she will forget who she is in exchange for never feeling unloved again. Her breath hitched. The mirror man smiled. "Or you can stay, and I will never leave you again." She backed away. The mask pulsed as if trying to sink into her skin. Her fingers clawed at it, and this time, just barely, it gave way. She threw it to the ground. It shattered like glass, and the room screamed. The mirrors cracked. The flowers wilted. The man's face twisted, no longer beautiful, but something stretched and hungry. "You broke the illusion," it hissed. "You said you wanted the truth." Tears streamed down her face. "I do, even if it hurts." The door reopened, but outside the garden had changed. The flowers were silent now, the names beneath them scraped clean, and a wind rose, carrying not whispers but screams. She stepped out, and behind her the house collapsed into a sigh. The garden was no longer beautiful. It had withered. Petals lay like ashes on the ground. Stems twisted into skeletal fingers reaching for something that would never return. And the air, once heavy with whispers, now trembled with silence. But silence had its own language, and she began to understand it. With every step she took through the path of scorched soil and broken blossoms, she heard not voices, but memories. Not his, hers. The names had returned, carved into stones half buried beneath wilted roots. But this time, they weren't strangers. They were parts of her, each one a title she had worn and lost. The girl who waited, the one who said yes even when it hurt, the apology that wasn't hers to give. Every step forward was a confrontation with the version of herself she'd sacrificed to keep someone else whole. The path wound tighter, darker. She passed a tree carved with wounds instead of bark. Hanging from its limbs were mirrors, each one cracked, some from within. She looked into one and saw herself as she had been, eyes eager, heart open, believing love could fix a man who never wanted to be fixed. Another mirror showed her crying in a bathroom, silently, while texting "I'm fine." Another apologizing when she had done nothing wrong. She collapsed to her knees. The garden did not comfort her. It simply watched, and from the soil something rose. Not a figure, not a ghost, but a shadow shaped like her. Her voice, but distant, detached. "You gave him everything, even the parts he never asked for, even the parts he never deserved." She whispered back, "I just didn't want to be left." The shadow stepped closer. "So instead, you left yourself." It reached toward her chest and pressed a hand just above her heart. Pain surged, not sharp, not sudden, but slow and suffocating, like remembering too much all at once. She saw it. The first time he yelled and she blamed herself. The time she caught him lying and chose to forgive before he apologized. The way she shrank over months to fit into a love too small for her. The shadow leaned in. "This isn't about him anymore." It never was. "The wound," it whispered, "is not his leaving. It's that you forgot how to stay with yourself." She screamed, not out of rage, but release. The mirrors shattered in the tree, and the garden began to breathe. The air thickened, not with fear, but truth. And as she stood, something bloomed at her feet. A single white flower. Small, fragile, honest. She bent down to touch it, and it didn't whisper, it listened. For the first time, something in the garden wanted nothing from her. It simply existed, like she now did. And from far ahead, through the last curve of the thorn-laced path, a soft golden light shimmered, not from the house, not from a lover's illusion, but from the gate that marked the end of grief. She wiped the dirt from her palms. She stood tall, not healed, not whole, but awake.
The gate wasn't golden. Not really.
It shimmered like hope seen through exhausted eyes. Not dazzling, but persistent. She stepped through it, not with the grace of a saviour, but the unsteady breath of someone who had clawed their way back from forgetting. And on the other side, a room, circular, empty, silent. In the centre stood a single pedestal. Upon it, a box, wooden, worn, familiar. She didn't need to open it to know what was inside, because it was the last thing he had ever given her, his promise. She reached for it slowly. Her hands trembled. She remembered the way he said, "I'll never leave you," and how easily he did. She remembered how she clutched this box on the night she stopped eating, how she hid it from her friends, how she convinced herself that loyalty meant enduring, even when it bled. She lifted the lid. Inside was not a ring, not a letter, not an apology, just a scrap of fabric from the day they met, stained with time, frayed at the edges. And suddenly her breath caught, because that piece of fabric, it was hers, a part of the dress she wore that day. She had thought he'd kept it as a memento, but now she saw the truth. He had taken it, not as remembrance, but as possession. The walls began to echo with voices, but this time not his, not hers, everyone else's. You were so lucky to have him. Maybe if you had done more. At least he stayed for a while. Each phrase, a thorn sewn into her skin by people who never knew the whole story. She dropped the box. It didn't shatter, but the sound of it hitting the floor was louder than any scream. She looked to the empty air and spoke a name, not his, hers. Her real name, the one she hadn't said in months, the one she had stopped recognizing in her own mouth, the one she was always afraid would sound too loud, too much, too unlovable. This time it rang true. The echoes fell silent. The air grew still, and a warmth rose from the floor. Not fire, not magic, but memory. Her own. She saw herself laughing with a friend she hadn't spoken to since the breakup. She saw the art she stopped creating, the books she abandoned halfway through, the mirror she used to love looking into, all the things she'd let die to hold on to something that never deserved her to begin with. They weren't gone. They had been waiting. She stepped away from the box, not with anger, not with hate, with clarity, the kind that doesn't demand revenge, but simply refuses to forget herself again. And that was when the room opened up, not with fanfare, but with a soft breeze carrying a single sentence. You are not what he left behind. You are what you chose to carry forward. She smiled, a real one, not stitched for survival, not painted for politeness, a smile that cracked through the grief and reached the girl who had once danced barefoot in the rain.
There was still one step left.
But she would take it with her own name on her lips and her past behind her, not erased, but owned. The one who walked away with the light. The final path was not paved in stone or roses. It was dirt. Soft, worn, marked by the footsteps of someone who had walked this road once before. Hers. She knew it now. This wasn't a maze someone else had built. It was a memory she had buried. Every thorn she'd tripped over, every shadow that had whispered, every promise that had bled into silence, they were hers. There was no final monster, no confrontation, no lover waiting at the end, asking for forgiveness. Just a doorway. And beyond it, a world. Not the one she had lost, not the one he promised. But a world still moving forward, with or without her. She stood there for a long time, long enough to remember the girl she had been, long enough to forgive the woman she had become. Behind her, the garden was quiet, not dead, not alive, just still, as if it too had been waiting, not for her to win, but for her to choose. She looked down at her hands, no more thorns, only scars, soft, healed, proof that pain was real, and so was healing. And then a whisper, but not from the past, from within. You survived, you learned, you can leave now. She stepped through the doorway. The world did not cheer, no birds sang, no sun broke dramatically through clouds, but there was wind, and it smelled like rain, like beginning again. She walked down a road where no one knew her name, and for the first time, that was okay, because she did. And she whispered it to herself like a spell, like a vow. like the soft closing of a book whose ending was never meant to be happy, but true. The screen fades to black, then a single line appears. There are some stories you don't survive by fighting. You survive them by walking away. Or maybe the beginning